Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
Donald Trump.
When you mock that, we're done.
Then, as the Republican primary season winds down, there is but one true frontrunner. Like it or not, Donald Trump has a commanding lead. Yet there, trailing in the distance, is Ted Cruz and John Kasich. Will this finally be the death nail in the Cruz campaign's political coffin? Or will Ted Cruz continue to wander around the countryside like a dead zombie in search of more delegates? Live coverage and analysis of the Indiana primary begins right now on the Infowars Nightly News.
What are you doing to fight these people? Get out there, take action. I began to get into iodine a few years ago because it was helping me and my family so much get healthy and detoxify. I believe our research is conclusive. This is the best iodine out there. And I know this for a fact. Nobody else has got iodine based on these pure crystals, ladies and gentlemen. For a limited time, experience the ancient power of Survival Shield X2. I believe our research is conclusive. This is the best iodine out there. Take advantage of this at InfoWarsLife.com.
Welcome to our live coverage here on the Infowars Nightly News of the Indiana GOP primary. Now, we've been told for a couple of weeks that none of the primaries in the Northeast mattered. Trump won 6 in a row. Cruz lost 5 of the 6, all 6, and he came in 3rd place on 5 of those 6. But we were told that didn't matter because the 57 votes tonight, Rob, were going to be the ones that really mattered.
It really mattered.
And this was it. I mean, you know, Ted Cruz has been telling people all week that this is the final, the most important thing. We've got Glenn Beck doing fasts, and we're going to talk about that aspect of it.
Bring up Drudge Report. It's got the headline right now. Trump, Indiana, 53%. Cruz at 36. Kasich at a whopping 8.
Wow.
And then the big news, though, I think, of the night is Sanders, who was not in the lead, is now taking the lead.
Yeah, that is interesting. So the Democrat race might actually be more interesting to watch unfold tonight. But what we've seen happen in the last week is we've seen a massive momentum towards Cruz. Going back to the middle,
having a fit.
Yes, exactly. Going back to the middle of the month, we saw the last poll where Cruz was positive, and he had a pretty big lead, but that was just an Indiana poll. It wasn't one of these national polling organizations like NBC or Wall Street Journal, whatever. But what we've seen in the last week or so, we've seen Trump go up from +2 to +9 to +15 to +17, and now where is he? Is 20-some-odd points ahead of Cruz, right?
27.
Yeah, 27. Yeah. So he's got a substantial lead, and that's consistent with what we've been seeing happening. And I said when we were watching the Dreamer riots that you guys were covering out in California, I said that's it.
Yeah,
I mean, you're going to see him really surge now.
And he surged in California.
Yeah. He'd already surged in the Northeast. But they were telling us, don't worry, you know, that's just the Northeast. That's not real Republican territory. That's what the Never Trump talking conservative radio and press have been saying. Don't pay any attention to that. So I think this is very significant. And I think when we look at the way the delegates are going to be allocated tonight, It's kind of interesting because we've got 57 delegates there in Indiana. There's going to be 27 that are going to be allocated as a winner-take-all at the state level. So the guy that comes across
Which
first,
means Cruz will get them, right?
Yeah, that's right. He'll get them later. He'll get them next week when nobody's paying any attention. Right. He'll sneak in the back door and grab them. But for the first round of the convention, Trump will most likely, unless there's some kind of massive flip of the voting machines here, he's going to get 27 because he's going to win at the state level. Then they have another 27 that are allocated at the congressional district level. And they're not allocated proportionately. So it's winner take all at each of the 9 congressional districts. And each of those are going to have 3 delegates given to the winner. So that's 27 total. Most likely he will win the vast majority of those as well. And then the RNC reserves 3 for themselves. They keep 5% of the delegates for themselves.
Oh, okay.
That's their cut off the top to start with. And then Cruz comes in the back door and starts playing his games. More and more. That's right.
And we've got more of that. On Sunday we had a caller who was a Virginia delegate said, hey, there was a bunch of hanky-panky going on here. They just pushed anybody who was for Trump out, and she was a Cruz supporter. And today it came out the governor of Virginia wasn't even allowed to be a delegate, just like we saw Jan Brewer.
In Arizona, yeah.
Right, Jan Brewer didn't get to be a delegate because she was supportive of Trump. And
see, that's the key thing. And they say, well, this is just politics. He wasn't there. He didn't have a good ground game. It's like, look, when you take the governor of Arizona, who's been to the last 5 conventions, and you remove her mysteriously from the ballot, you don't even allow her name to appear on the ballot.
Right.
Okay, there's something other than just a good ground game going on, okay? It's total baloney.
But let's get into what came out today on Fox News. This just came out. It's from Media Matters. Alex texted me this. Do you have the article? I don't have the.
I do.
You got the Media Matters article.
Fox News host says Trump is pivoting into the Alex Jones presidency with his conspiracy theories. There we go. Okay, so they're going back and forth. They're talking about what's happening. And Greg Gutfeld says, well, I think we're missing the biggest story of the day. Imagine if Hillary Clinton claimed that Bernie Sanders had a role in the killing of Bobby Kennedy. We would all be going crazy right now. Yeah, because there's no evidence of that.
Exactly.
Folks. But there is some about this other story, and we'll talk about that later on. He says, but what we have here, are we about to achieve a historical first in electing the first conspiracy freak president? Is this the pivot we've been talking about? He's not pivoting for presidential. He's pivoting to Alex Jones. There we go. Why isn't this news, he asks.
Yeah.
Okay. He says, these guys are crazy. Well, we had this Wayne Madsen story going back to the middle of April.
7th.
Yeah, and
April
actually
7th.
Wayne had done a story on Wayne Madsen Reports back in February showing some of this data. Now, this isn't when Donald Trump said this on a call-in to one of the Fox shows earlier, he said he started talking about it, and the host there said, oh, there's some photo that they dug up that has a resemblance to Ted Cruz's dad. It's not just that. If you go back and you look at the article that we've got at Infowars.com, there's a lot of circumstantial evidence. It's circumstantial, but there's a lot of circumstantial evidence. And I have said, and you've heard me say this in the office from the very beginning, I said, look, why are we constantly getting these people that have tenuous connections with citizenship into this country who also have tenuous relationships with the CIA, like Barack Obama? His grandparents were some of the founding members of the CIA.
And the Bushes.
Exactly. And so then we got this guy whose dad is there in Cuba with Castro and all this. As all that stuff is happening, and somehow he mysteriously comes to Texas and gets in the oil business. Okay. I said from the very beginning, I suspected they had some CIA connections. I didn't have any information. I didn't research it like Wayne Madsen did. But there is a lot more than simply a photograph on this.
Right. There definitely is. And we talked about it. We had Roger Stone on to talk about it. And that story was what, 2 weeks ago that we had Roger Stone on? Now, Trump talks about it today today or yesterday on a show, on a radio show. And so now, finally, Fox News is going with it now that Trump has mentioned it. Yeah. So Trump seems to think there's enough evidence there to mention it. I don't think he would say that if he didn't think there was enough evidence to link Ted Cruz's father to Lee Harvey Oswald.
I think there's a lot of evidence there. There is a good resemblance in that photograph. However, you go back and you look at some of the other information that Wayne Madsen pulled up. He talks about how Robert Blakely, who was the chief counsel on the House Special Committee on Assassinations, affirmed that the men seen with Oswald in this photograph that were passing out pamphlets at the Trade Mart in New Orleans on August 9th were never identified. In 1993, he says, well, there's one person in there we've never been able to identify. And then he brings in connections that have a guy who was known to work with Guy Bannister, had a private investigation agency. He had been an FBI agent. He was retired, but he continued to work for the FBI, continued to work for the CIA. He was in the same building where this Fair Play for Cuba committee, this pro-Castro committee that Oswald was working with, and that was essentially a beard for them to run anti-Castro operations. But they were in the same building, even though one of them had an entrance on one street and the other one had an entrance on another street. If you look at it, it's not looks like
different addresses.
Exactly. Right. All the kind of stuff you typically see. And the fact that as you have Jim Garrison start his investigation in 1963 of the Kennedy assassination, saying, hey, look, there was a lot of CIA, a lot of Cuban exiles here, all working, doing mysterious stuff, and he began that investigation. That was the one that Oliver Stone turned into the JFK film. As Garrison starts to conduct his investigation, Ted Cruz's dad leaves town and goes to Canada.
Right.
Okay. There's a lot of stuff here, folks. If you want to look at this stuff, again, it's circumstantial evidence, but there's a lot of circumstantial evidence.
The New Orleans to Canada pipeline, it's that's all people do. Is they live in New Orleans and they go straight to Canada.
Yeah, He also points out, this is another thing that Wayne pointed out. Okay, Rafael Cruz, Sr., okay, I don't know, maybe they got a different middle name, but Ted's name is Rafael as well. It says, in 1957, Rafael Cruz left Cuba for the U.S. Cruz claims that he fought with Castro against the fascist government of Batista, but he soured on the revolution. However, Cruz left Cuba 2 years before the Castro revolution. So there you go. I mean, you start to see some conflicts with known facts. You start to see some connections with some known operatives, and there's a lot of circumstantial evidence.
But hey, you bring it up on Fox News Radio during a phone interview, and suddenly you're an Alex Jones kook. And this is information we brought out 2-3 weeks ago. Had plenty of time to be vetted. And you know,
they laughed at him. They laughed at Donald Trump about the 28 secret pages.
Exactly.
Okay.
And now you have the CIA head going, oh, all those 28 pages are mischaracterized and they're unvetted, and all these other adjectives used to.
He just did that this weekend. He just did that this weekend.
That's called damage control, people. If you don't know what that is, it's called damage control.
Well, he is trying to control the damage to be done to him, because Brennan is involved up to the hip with this.
Sure.
Also, the connections with Bondar and the Saudis and CIA, all that stuff will start to unravel if we see that. But of course, also, you know, when the first time Donald Trump talked about that, before it was picked up by 60 Minutes, and they started talking to Bob Graham and all the people, Democrats and Republicans.
Who were on the committee.
Yeah, who were on the committee. All of these people who were the creme de la creme of the intelligence and military community, according to the establishment. These people were all calling for the 28 pages to be released. They went on 60 Minutes, and then everything changed. But weeks before that, you had the Wall Street Journal. The very first thing, what did they do? They said, look at this. Donald Trump talking about the missing 28 pages. Alex Jones. Yeah. He turned into an Alex Jones clown, okay? That was National Review 2 weeks before 60 Minutes. That now all of a sudden it's legit, okay? Except now you got Brennan saying, oh, this wasn't vetted. The FBI didn't do their work properly.
Exactly. And that's what you always get. And you know, this reminds me, you guys, during dinner, we were having a pretty interesting conversation between you and Biggs, were talking about what's going on at West Point. And I think we have Joe Biggs and Jakari Jackson in our brand new refurbished studio, and Studio B, Studio C. No, that'd be Studio B, actually. So let's go to those guys now, and let's pick up that conversation. And before we go to break, because then we're going to go to an interview we had, I did earlier today with a, I guess, a fighter of social justice warriors, we could call him.
That's right.
He was, hopefully he's going to put out some information out there that could help you, especially those of you in California who are going to be dealing with the social justice warrior onslaught in the coming weeks as we lead up to the June 7th California primary. Donald Trump's going to be making a lot of pit stops there, which you know what's going to happen. We're going to see, I guess, more property destroyed in the name of love, more people getting beat up in the name of love.
And let me say this about that, because this is another conversation we were having. As I was on my way home Sunday night, I was listening to a radio broadcast out of Chicago, and this is a guy, one of the fellows likes to say, well, we're objective press, and we sit right on the fence. We don't take sides. And he's got people from 4 different presidential campaigns, 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats. And he's saying that he was in California, and as he pulled up to that area, he saw them block it. There was a traffic jam, and they had a carload of Mexicans in front of him, and he said they had F Trump written all over their car, and then they jumped out and they started spray painting other cars with that same stuff. And he says, as we pulled up to the rally, it was a riot by these dreamers. And he goes, they had a broadcast of what Donald Trump was saying on the inside. And he was talking to all these people who were victims of illegal aliens who had come across. And he goes, as that was playing over the loudspeakers, you had all this happening out there. And he goes, it was pretty amazing. He goes, is that fair game for Donald Trump to talk about that? You know, to talk about this story? Because, you know, because people on the left use stories about people who've died from gun violence to push gun
all
control.
the time.
Should he be talking about these stories? And I said, well, yeah, I guess it's pretty good for him and it's fair game for that. But, you know, he caused all this because he went to Chicago. He went to the university where Bill Ayers is, and that triggered all this because you can't go there because Bill Ayers owns that. That's like saying the Central Park jogger who got raped, she should never have gone into Central Park because
that's where rapists go.
That's right. You should know better than
it's
that.
Totally ridiculous. But that's the world we live in. Hey, do we have Jakari and Biggs in the other studio, in Studio B?
Hey, we are here.
All right. So, Joe Biggs, you guys were talking today about this, what's going on in West Point, and basically they're feminizing the Army. This is all part of this, you know, turn the Army into a bunch of females wearing high heels, all that. What's your take on what's going on in West Point?
I mean, it's an interesting thing. I mean, we've already seen what the Obama administration has done thus far to our military, having our soldiers walking around in red high heels, having these social justice warrior classes, you know, in the military, which is something that these guys should not be focused on. These are soldiers, and their job is to be in combat and to fight terrorists, not to sit here and find out what the new social justice warrior trending topics are. And now we have West Point adding another female in there, one who has no experience in combat whatsoever, to train and get these guys ready for the rigors of combat when this female herself has never been in combat at all.
Yeah, they have somebody, the commandant, who is in charge of the military training. They have a dean who's in charge of academic training. On Friday, they announced that the dean that they're going to appoint is a female. She's a social science professor, as you would expect, okay, because this is social engineering. The commandant, that is female, 5'1", and she's going to be teaching combat. She was appointed in January of this year. And now the two of them report to a superintendent who is still male, and we've got to get that changed because that is absolutely sexist that they would report to a male there.
Exactly.
So.
I mean, we're already bringing in females now to lead Rangers in combat missions. It's a complete and total joke, especially when you have the guy who runs the training of the Ranger School coming out and saying, yeah, we're going to have a female Ranger regardless, which means that they have dropped the standards, ignored standard operating procedure, and are doing this to be politically correct. We should not have any kind of PC in our military. That's one place it does not belong. And you're going to put people at risk. I don't want some 110-pound girl as a firefighter who can't even pick me up to come save me if I'm passed out from smoke inhalation, much less I'm here with a whole bunch of guys, or we're taking on an enemy target. We got like 300 guys attacking us, and I get shot, and little 110-pound Nancy's back there, Private Nancy, is trying to run up here and grab me. What's going to happen? She's going to get shot. I'm going to get shot. The more people are going to come over here because they're going to see a woman go down, and there's going to be more people. It's ridiculous. It just doesn't work out.
Well, everything has to be subordinated to their social agenda that they've got going on here, and that's precisely what's happening. Stay with us. We got to take a break, Joe. We're going to be right back with more live coverage.
We're going to be taking your calls, too, so stand by for that.
There's a very important question that needs to be answered. Will humanity survive? And to look at that threat, we have to ask another question. What is the #1 obstacle to human beings and our species surviving and becoming a type 1 civilization that isn't just dependent on this planet? You could say that it's changes in the heavens, suns going supernova, tectonic earthquake and volcano events, nuclear weapons, genetic engineering. But if you look at the race, the acceleration of technological development, I think the biggest threat overall is humanity not pacing ourselves and merging with artificial intelligence. So they're trying to end humanity as if it's a good thing and create this new species. Talk about mad scientists. And there have been several new articles on this just the last few weeks. DARPA is testing implantable chips in soldiers' brains is one of them. Another just came out in mid-April. Rich Americans seeks black market brain implants in bid to plug into artificial intelligence matrix. And they're going to go through the dangerous surgeries of being hooked up, not just with a few wires, but with thousands of connections total, to the brain, to an AI computer to try to merge consciousness. My father, a physician, recently went back to continuing education, part of keeping his medical license, and he brought me back some of the literature they gave them. This was from the state medical boards right here in Texas, that soon you'll have to have a DNA chip to get a prescription. Not just that chips are going to be on the pills and medicines themselves, but now you're going to have to give your blood, basically every time, a tiny prick, into a DNA chip database that tracks everything going on in your body as well as your genes. In this short report, we're only scratching the surface. And the big issue here is things they denied 20, 30 years ago that were going on, they're now admitting today. What are they doing that we don't know about? We need to have a debate about our species. We need to understand that the global elite have decided we're obsolete and are moving towards a robotic future where there's no place for humanity, as Bill Joy wrote over 15 years ago for Wired Magazine in his article, Why the Future Doesn't Need Us. And the numbers are in. Screen time, all the television, all the prescription drugs. This modern culture is killing us. Our IQs are dropping. People are becoming more and more ignorant. Society is unraveling and falling apart. So we know that the fruits of this high-tech poison tree are literally killing us. The answer is getting back to healthy living, gardening, spending time with our families, less screen time, and also using compounds that Mother Nature has produced that are known to boost our natural abilities. Humans have built an incredible world. We can change our environment. We do have that magic spark. But the elite think we're ugly and bad and have decided it's time that humans be thrown on the ash heap of history. We have taken some of the compounds that Mother Nature has produced and gotten the cleanest, purest sources of it and put it together in BrainForce, one of the most highly reviewed nootropic brain boosters on the market today that has an incredibly affordable price. Check out BrainForce today and other game-changing compounds like X2 Survival Shield at InfoWarsLife.com. Again, that's InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139.
Welcome back to the Infowars Nightly News. Now, our next guest really needs no introduction if you've been a follower of the Alex Jones channel and what's going on lately with all these social justice warriors. You can see the video, Anti-Trump Protesters Go Berserk, and that is Owen Schroyer right there talking to a large gathering of anti-Trump protesters and basically by himself talk them down into a corner. So he's going to basically, what I invited him on here today is, you know, California is coming up, the primary. There's going to be at least a dozen Trump rallies in between now and then. So this is for people who are pro-First Amendment, pro-freedom of speech, even pro-Trump. He's going to give you some tips on what you can do. He's over my shoulder right now. It's Owen Schroyer. He's going to tell you what you could do against these social justice warriors. Owen, how's it going today?
It's going good. I'm honored to be on Infowars.com. You guys are probably my favorite news source. When I got the call from you, I was ecstatic. So glad to be here today. Well,
let me tell you, I was more than impressed, and we should have got you on a lot sooner. I was really impressed with how you stood your ground. You had facts. You weren't afraid to be loud and just, you know, express your opinions out there in a group, you know, that was definitely hostile to what you had to say.
Well, and the thing was, I didn't go there to do any street debating. I just went there to see Donald and hear what he had to say. And it just reached a point where I couldn't help myself. I was sick of being called a racist. I was sick of being called crazy. And I guess there's just a little rebel-rousing soul inside of me that whenever I see an all-you-can-eat buffet of social justice warriors, I can't help myself. But, you know, what it came down to at the end of everything, as you said, was they were basically backed into a corner. All I had to do was stand my ground. And you can, I don't know how many knockouts I had in that little 20-minute session there, but they just come, they embarrass themselves, and then they disappear because they have no depth to their argument. So I actually felt like I was not my most coherent, not my most eloquent that day, but it's tough to be when people are shouting racist at you and F Trump and whatnot. And
well, I agree with you.
My voice because a crowd gathered around me. I mean, there were probably 200 people gathered around witnessing this thing. So I started raising my voice, and it really became quite a moment.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. You can't fault yourself, you know, looking back, oh, I should have said this, I should have said that. I do that too, looking at videos that I put out there and produce. Oh, I should have said this, should have brought this up. But at least you're out there, you're in the moment, you're getting in the game. And I got to see this shirt. Show me this shirt that you're wearing. It looks like a knockoff of Beavis and Butthead. It says, "Are you kidding me?" And it's got, well, there's Abe Skrillex and Carl the Cuck, the guys who made themselves famous by sticking their feet in their mouths, essentially, right?
Well, this is a man who claimed that he'd done his research and then referred to Mao and Lenin as capitalists. So right then and there, he pretty much trumped himself.
Well, they did get funding from the globalists, though. So I guess in that way, they were getting capital from the globalists who wanted to take down these other countries.
He doesn't even know what capitalism is. He probably doesn't know what globalism is. I call these people the hearsay mafia. They don't do any research. They don't have any depth to their stance. They just hear and then they say. I don't know what their sources are exactly, maybe MSNBC, you know, but they're the hearsay mafia, and that's why they're so easy to defeat in a street debate, because they have no depth.
Well, let's get right into it. Let's get into tips that you could give other people out there, especially in California, who are going to be going up against these social justice warriors. Aside from carrying a camera and having it ready and to record at all times and plenty of space, what other advice could you give people out there?
Well, yeah, and that is key, because the only reason there were probably 3 or 4 other moments that day that were very similar to the moment that Josh Owens captured. So having a camera to capture it is very powerful if you want to get the viral video, if you want to get this illustrated to millions of people. Other than that, you know, if you're an informed individual and if you're courageous enough to stand your ground despite people yelling at you, now we're seeing this devolve into spitting at you, throwing eggs, whatever it may be. If you're just courageous and you stand your ground and you know your stuff, you're going to defeat these people every time. Now, I'll be perfectly honest, Rob, because you wanted to talk about what's going on in California. What I experienced in St. Louis, honestly, I think is going to pale in comparison to what people are going to experience in California, because these protesters have gotten much more aggressive. So what I would suggest doing, and I'm planning on going to Cleveland, and this is kind of my plan, take a stance that is less aggressive. Let them come after you. Let them expose themselves for what they really are, which is the ignorant sheeple, the walking dead. You know what most of these people are going to say because they're brainwashed. So you ask them, oh, what's wrong with Trump? What's the first response you're going to get? He's racist.
He's a misogynist. Okay. He's a xenophobe. He's sexist. He hates all Muslims.
Can you give me one example? Can you give me one example? And you hear the same thing. It's, are you kidding me? It's, oh my gosh, oh, I don't have to, you know, they can't give an example. And there might even be examples. You could probably give hundreds of examples, but these people have none. And that's what it really comes down to. If you go out there and you can get them in the ring with you in a civil debate. I mean, I know that it was very hostile in the streets of St. Louis that day, but it was civil. Nobody was violent. The one guy spit on me, but I think that's just because he was so out of control. I don't even think he meant to. But I'm expecting it to be a lot worse with these people in California, and they might be even more ignorant than the people I experienced in St. Louis. So you really need to come from a calm and collective point that tries to lure them into the ring. Basically, you need to get them to play your game, because we can't play their game. I'm not going to walk around in the streets chanting racist or F this or F that, throwing eggs and spitting at people. That's not our game. Our game is a civil discussion. Our game is the information war. That's our game. So try to bring these people into the ring, have them engage in the information war, and you'll walk out undefeated like a lion in the ring with a bunch of gazelles.
Yeah, and you totally illustrated that. I mean, you stood your ground for 20 minutes. Most of the interactions I was able to record were way less than that. I mean, 5-6 minutes at a time, maybe even 30 seconds. But just standing up and standing in the ring is one way to defeat these people because they don't have an argument. When I was in San Francisco, just trying to talk to people, once you'd ask them a couple questions, oh, F you, I'm out of here, and they would run off. I'm not here to debate. I'm here to cause trouble, is actually what one guy said. He had a green handkerchief on, and, you know, of course, he covered his face as soon as things started to get crazy. So I totally agree with you. That is, what do you think in general? What's going on? Are we really living in idiocracy now? I mean, these people, I don't know where they come from or where they get their ideas.
Right, and I'm glad you said that. Rob, this is something that I struggle with every day. And we know the whys, okay? We can sit here and we can point out whys. There's fluoride in the water. The mainstream news is basically just a propaganda arm of the globalist regime. So, you know, beyond there's other factors as well, but just those two factors are enough for us to kind of understand how these people got that way. You know, so there is a chance for some people, but these people on the streets, I'm not sure if there's a hope for them. I think that they're completely brainwashed. They're basically just an empty vassal of brainwashing. And I don't know if there's hope for these people.
Well, I tell you what, one thing we have to do is illustrate what they're doing so we educate others out there who still can be reached. And I want to commend you for doing it. Go ahead and plug your website and your YouTube channel. I know you like to talk politics on YouTube.
Yeah, so I've got a YouTube channel. It's Owen Schroyer. The name of it's really a podcast, but I do screen sharing as well. I share the news stories because, you know, what we like to do is just have facts to back up our arguments, just this thing that we do in the information war. But I go on, I usually do about an hour, 2 hours. The name of the channel is Owen Schroyer. The name of the show is Engage Liberty. You can follow me on Twitter. All I do is Owen. That's where I post updates for when I'm going to be live. And if you like the broadcast, if you like the energy I bring to the air and you want to support it, go to CameronLeeWorldwide.com and you can get these T-shirts. We already talked about the Are You Kidding Me? Age Skrillex, Carl the Cuck shirt, but I've got other shirts on there. I've got a Trump card shirt. I'm trying to make something for myself, trying to fund myself. That's what Trump's doing as well. So that's true Americana. That's true independence. And that's what I think needs to be resurrected in this country. And
that's getting in the ring. And as we go to break, I want to share with you guys some of the best of Balina Tetas. That's going to be her new nickname as we travel the social justice warrior ecosystem out there. We now have Balina Tetas out there, so we're going to go to her as we go to break. Thanks for joining us, Owen.
Thanks, guys. Salute to the Info Warriors out there.
All right. All right, Rob with Infowars.com. You would think this would be a little block party scenario, but if you look behind me, there are mounted police. There are police in riot gear. People have taken over the streets of Costa Mesa. So are you with the group that was running around topless earlier? So are you guys here for Trump?
Gender equality? No, I'm with myself.
A lot of people ask me what is the most important area of Infowars that runs the whole operation that is having such a big effect against the globalists. And I've said it over and over again, it is you, the listeners and the viewers, that send us the intel, the news tips, that support the broadcast, that spread the word. You are 90% of the operation or more. You don't stand beside us, you stand at the heart of Infowars. When I talk about the people at Infowars, from customer service, the shipping department, being just as important as our anchors, our researchers, our investigative journalists, and myself, it's absolutely true. Without this team that we've built over the last 20 plus years, we wouldn't be able to do any of what we've been doing. And that's what's so exciting, because we finally built up to a point where we now have the launch pad. Introducing AutoShip for InfoWarsLife.com, a new way to save time and money when you stock up on InfoWarsStore.com products. Again, ladies and gentlemen, when products are sold out, you're unable to get them, sometimes for months, but we hold back the products for people that have already signed up for AutoShip. When you choose AutoShip before checkout on your order at InfoWarsStore.com, we'll give you 10% off and give you guaranteed delivery of out-of-stock products that are on your AutoShip list. Plus, we're giving you free shipping on all orders above $50. Listeners have been requesting this for years because it's so easy to forget to reorder the products when you need them each month. Now it's finally here. AutoShip at InfoWarsStore.com and InfoWarsLife.com. It's easy. Go to InfoWarsStore.com, select your favorite product, click on the AutoShip, and choose how often you want us to send you another order. As you know, I coined the term 360 win, and with the new auto ship feature at InfoWarsLife.com, it's a sure win. You add to that free shipping on orders of $50, it is a can't lose. Visit InfoWarsStore.com and save 10% off on your next InfoWars Life order by selecting auto ship at checkout, and get free shipping on all orders above $50. That's InfoWarsStore.com, or call toll-free 888-253-3139.
Your liver can be full of fatty deposits, built-up toxins, and even dangerous objects known as liver stones. We worked with the top developers in the field of detox to take tried and true herbs and other compounds known to safely cleanse the liver and fused it with the latest research and technological development on concentrating these ingredients to give you the maximum effect. Liver Shield is the only liver support product on the market that uses a patented Spigyrex blend of powerful organic herbs that support detoxification. And when you visit InfoWarsLife.com, see the instructional video on how to do a 6-day liver detox. This isn't a game, and let me tell you, the results are dramatic. Liver Shield is totally organic and made of the safest high-quality herbs. Liver Shield is the only liver support product on the market that uses a patented Spigyrex blend of powerful organic herbs that support detoxification. And when you visit InfoWarsLife.com, see the instructional video on how to do a 6-day liver detox. This isn't a game, and let me tell you, the results are dramatic. Liver Shield is totally organic and made of the safest high-quality herbs. But that said, you need to consult your physician before you do the full detox. Liver Shield can also be used daily by itself for overall upkeep of the liver. Secure your Liver Shield today exclusively at InfoWarsLife.com for the lowest price available. That's InfoWarsLife.com, or call 888-253-3139.
Welcome back to our live coverage here on InfoWars Nightly News. And of course, as George Will would put it, this is the latest episode in a protracted process. But that process has just now contracted. We've had Ted Cruz announce that he is dropping out of the race. Ted Cruz has tapped out.
One of the best things he's done all election season long. In fact, this is what they say from Politico. Ted Cruz is quitting the presidential race, according to campaign manager Jeff Rowe, ending one of the best organized campaigns of 2016. But after a series of stinging defeats, left Donald Trump as the only candidate capable of clinching the nomination outright.
He really didn't have anywhere to go. No. He had painted himself into a corner. He said all these states in the Northeast didn't matter, you know, even though he'd lost every one of them. And as I point out, in 5 of the 6, he came in a distant third. He said, it's just the Northeast. And then, but, you know, Indiana, that's God's Midwest, country. Yeah. That's my country. And I guess America is going to hell, according to Glenn Beck.
and Ted Cruz's dad and everybody else. I just tweeted, what will Mark Levin, Dana Loesch, and Glenn Beck do now?
Well, we know what Mark Levin is doing. And we got this at the top of the Drudge Report. Radio host Levin slams Fox News after Cruz lost and says, they'll be rubbing their own faces in their own feces.
Wow.
And, of course, we've already seen Glenn Beck rubbing his face in Cheetos last week, just illustrating that he's not a clown.
There you go. And I mean, you got to hit Cruz. I guess he thought he could do it, and he just couldn't pull it off. This is definitely the smartest thing he's done. But the way he changed as a candidate after he started getting those wins, he changed into the attack dog, and it didn't work at all. It just didn't work for him.
And he started courting the establishment.
And exactly. But I think the best thing of him leaving is now we've defeated Jeb Bush twice in this race. He's lost twice now. Out of one. And
I shouldn't say that he was courting the establishment, because, look, we all believe that he was the establishment all along. We talked about the fact that he was been embedded in the Bush administration, 10+ years ago, whatever. He is a Bush guy. And I believe from the very beginning he was chosen to be the face of the conservative libertarian side. I think they believed that they had him there as a hedge, and just in case they couldn't shock and awe everybody with Jeb Bush's massive amounts of money, they would have him as the outsider, and then they could unify the party together with the insider Jeb Bush and the outsider Ted Cruz, regardless of whichever one was on top. It just didn't work out.
Carly was vice president pick for what, 3 days now?
That's right.
That's it.
And that's one of the most ridiculous things. You know, and going back into history and looking at this, we've never had a vice presidential candidate chosen this early in the process.
Yeah, but they did it for a reason.
They did it for a reason.
Right. Well, they did it for a reason because they needed someone to be able to lay off all of those Cruz campaign workers. So they already figured she was the perfect fit for that. She already did that at HP. They're like, you know, Cruz is going to lose this. We need someone to take care of this.
They take it all the way, so we can just make it a clean...
Cruz right now is going to sit back, you know, drink some champagne, play with his kids that hate him, and then Fiorina's going to come in, sweep in, and do all the dirty work and fire everyone. So
we thank you for your service, but it's no longer needed.
That's right. That's right.
That is going to be
crazy. Well, it's quite a race this whole thing has been turned up to be. You know, when you think about everybody we've lost, the people who still remain, and my question now is, what are they going to do with Kasich? Do they have some kind of plan for this guy going forward?
Well, he says he has pledged on Tuesday night to stay in the race until a candidate reaches 1,237 bound delegates. Now, that word bound is pretty interesting because
he's still beaten by Rubio.
I know. And he's not going to win any today either.
No, he's not. He didn't make the threshold of 15%. But, you know, the latest stats that we'd seen, when it was at 55% of the vote in, they'd already given 45 delegates to Donald Trump out of the 57.
Right.
And, of course, 3 of those are not going to be awarded because that goes to the RNC. They kept their 5% of the cut.
Well, the remaining ones are going to go to the Cruz campaign staffers. That way they have like a little consolation prize as they go out.
Well, I wonder if they're still going to work on stealing delegates. Or does it say he says he's dropping out, so he's not even suspending his campaign. Marco Rubio said, I'm suspending my campaign, which doesn't mean he's dropping out of the race.
Well, now that's the lower thirds on Fox, so we don't know. You know, he is a lawyer, and he does parse the words very, very carefully, Rob. So, you know, have to be very careful.
I meant I'm suspending of thinking about dropping out of the race. That's what I meant. Yeah.
You know, we were talking to Joe and Jakari about what's going on with the feminization of the military, the fact they've got the number 2 and, the 2 people right underneath the superintendent now are both going to be females, the social engineering that's going on there, and then, of course, the move to have women register for the draft. And I want to read this to you, Joe, because, you know, we had these outrageous comments from George Will over the weekend, and now we've got another outrageous comment. Listen to this. This guy is Richard Cohen. He's writing an op-ed piece for the Washington Post that came out today. And he says, if Donald Trump looked at a demographic profile of his supporters, he would sneer. Of course, now Richard Cohen is going to sneer at him.
Yeah.
He says they're just disproportionately out of work or not seeking it. If they do have a job, they're probably working with their hands. Maybe something a machine could do better or someone overseas could do cheaper. A large share only have a high school education. Trump, not one for the niceties of political correctness, might call such people losers. No, he's not calling them losers. Those are his supporters, and those are the people that he identifies with. This guy's calling them losers, and he goes on to say, I think there's something else as well. Suckers. He said, in the old days, this is Richard Cohen talking, he said, in the old days, there was yet another term for such a person, cannon fodder. Jobless and poor young men often would drift in the military and stay as long as they could. Now, this is coming from a guy who has supported every war we've had in his lifetime. And he sneers with contempt at the people that our globalist elite have declared economic warfare on and saying, you're nothing but cannon fodder for our foreign wars. And I think people are waking up to this, and they're understanding who the real enemies are, and they're not abroad, okay?
What's his name again so I can backhand him?
Richard Cohen. Richard Cohen.
David, when you were talking about the jobless drifters, I thought you were talking about the Bernie supporters.
Yeah, exactly. You hit the nail right on the head, Jakari. I've spent lots of time with these people, and not... you know, it looked like maybe there was 5 jobs between the 10,000 of them.
There's a hilarious meme out right now that shows a Bernie guy and then an older lady with a Trump.
Did you send me that? You sent me that.
Yeah, it says,
I'll pull it up over here.
The guy threatens to leave America if Donald Trump wins presidency. Mom supports Trump to get son out of basement. That's that's the perfect analogy of these people we run into, these social justice warriors at every event.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think the big issue is, though, I mean, look at Trump won in a landslide. It's not even close now. It looks like Cruz is going up another percentage point. You know, oh no, I'm sorry, that was Sanders and Clinton.
And that's the interesting story now that Sanders is on top of Clinton, and that's something that wasn't expected. And I think when you look at the delegates, so it's not going to help them very much, because in the Democrat Party, they're going to allocate at the state level and at the congressional level, all the delegates are going to be allocated proportionately. So they're going to split them about 50-50. And again, The
No one gets
difference
on
is
top of
going to be
Hillary.
the superdelegates. It's going to be the party establishment that's going to decide this, and all of his pleas to their sense of fairness are going to fall on deaf ears.
And he's, I mean, Trump won 15%. That's a trouncing by any other name.
Yeah, that's right.
And you know, this is the best Cruz has shown in 6 races now. 37% is the best he's shown.
I'm just glad we don't have to worry about the Zodiac killer continuing to run for, you know, for being president.
Well, I knew this was going to, I thought this was going to happen. I thought they all knew it internally, because yesterday as I was driving home, I'm clicking through the different channels and trying to hear people. And the typical never Trump media didn't want to talk about the election. They wanted to talk about other news. And so I thought, oh, let me see what old Mark Levin is saying. So I found him on my phone, and he was talking. He says, I am so sick and tired of CNN and Fox News. And he starts talking about the shopping network that he's watching. And so I was like, okay, it's over. These guys know it.
Levin was melting down early. He was completely just lost his cool earlier, because I always listened to him right after Michael Savage for a minute. And
well, the whole
everyone called into Levin's show, and they were all Trump supporters. And Levin was flipping out and screaming and yelling, and like you could hear the tear ducts starting to, you know, ramp up as they were about to, like, Niagara Falls out of his face. I mean, the guy is a loon. He's just as bad as Glenn Beck, and even worse than Cruz.
So Schadenfreude, and when we're talking about what's going on with the military, getting back to that real quickly again, they're going to draft women. They're putting women at the top of West Point. And then we've got Hillary Clinton coming out this weekend and saying, you know, I know how to deal with men that come off of the reservation.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, we're going to take a break here. And was Darren coming through on the line?
No. He was relaying a message from Alex. I guess Alex is watching, and I think he said he was going to call in at some point. When we come back from break, we're actually going to have Wayne Madsen pop in to talk about some stories that he's predicted, of course, way before the mainstream media even gets a hold of these. And also, I think we need to play that Greg Gutfeld clip. That
we'll play that one coming.
Clip talking about how Trump is the conspiracy president now because he talks about truth.
Right, we'll be right back. Get Brain Force at 25% off for a limited time at InfoWarsLife.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've been on this the last few months. You probably noticed I've been more crazed, more focused, less brain fog, more energy, more special reports, and it's because of Brain Force.
One of the worst things with most energy products is it's not sustainable, right? You're going to crash afterwards. And the cool thing about this is it's not just a bunch of energy compounds that are going to fire your brain up to a higher RPM or whatever, which it does do. This is sustainable. This isn't going to spike and you're going to collapse and you're going to feel really bad afterwards. This has a bunch of different antioxidants and compounds and polyphenols.
Everybody's on these drugs to knock their brain out because the brain's so fried.
We're looking at the television screen for research purposes or whatever we're even doing, trying to learn something, or staring at the computer all day, working, doing good. You're still damaging your brain.
You will find Brain Force and other game-changing products at InfoWarsLife.com or call 888-253-3139.
Get Brain Force at 25% off for a limited time at InfoWarsLife.com. And we thank you for your support.
In the past decade, we have witnessed unparalleled scientific discoveries in the area of health. But no one has put together a formula that focuses directly on brain health, nerve growth factors, and optimizing your cellular energy at the same time. DNA Force is one of the most expensive formulas to produce. Some of the ingredients in DNA Force are $12,000 a kilogram. We are using the coveted, patented, only American source of PQQ, CoQ10, and more. You want the best that's out there at the lowest price anywhere? Well, we're bringing you a total win-win. The ultimate value, cutting-edge, trailblazing game changer that also supports the InfoWar. We have produced a limited run of DNA Force, and it will take up to 12 weeks to produce more once we sell out. Secure your DNA Force today at InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139.
Welcome back to our live coverage of the Indiana primary and the conclusion, we should say, of the GOP primary, because we've just had Ted Cruz say that he is pulling out.
Wait a minute. Kasich is still in the race. There's still a chance. There's still a chance.
Well, you know, Kasich said a while back, he said, you know, maybe being president isn't the job for me. Maybe I'll go back and, you know, work at my son's school or something. And I think that's a career path that you got to consider.
Exactly. But, I mean, we're looking at a 17% point win right now with, they're saying 69% of the vote is in. And
even more importantly, he's going to get all the delegates, except for perhaps 3 who were the RNC. And that's the key. We have this unrelenting GOP elitist establishment at the top that is not throwing in the towel. We've got everybody else looking at this, but and saying there isn't any chance, except I'm not really so sure that these people are going to play along nicely as we look at this. But he's pretty much has all of the delegates there in Indiana. And the interesting thing that's happening right now is on the Democrat side, because we've got Bernie Sanders coming up with about a 5 to 6 point lead over Hillary Clinton at this point.
Very surprising.
Yeah, very surprising. But again, it's not going to help him much with the delegates because of the party rules. The superdelegates are going to be, they're not too far apart from each other if you take out the superdelegates. And he keeps saying that he believes that in sense of fairness that the superdelegates ought to line up with the way the states went. And he said she's not going to get to the magic number without the superdelegates, and superdelegates ought to, in the sense of democracy, ought to line up with the way the states voted. It's like, no, Bernie, that's not the way they play.
That's not the way they play, but it is the way it should work.
Yeah, it is.
And we saw Ted Cruz going after Arizona. He was really making a run there. Arizona, Virginia now, which we had a caller on Sunday. We were doing the Sunday show. And but let's get to that Gutfield clip first. Let's hear that.
Yeah, let's play that because now the delegate thing is not really up in the air. So let's play this breaking news that came out today, because today, just as they're going to vote, in a radio interview, Donald Trump started talking about this article that Wayne Madsen put together, and we had it about middle of April on the Infowars.com site, talking about the connections, possible connections between Ted Cruz's father and the JFK assassination, the group of Cubans that were in New Orleans at the time. And Greg Gutfeld had this to say.
Well, I think we're missing the biggest story of the day.
Oh, no.
Imagine if Hillary Clinton claimed that Bernie Sanders had a role in the killing of Bobby Kennedy. We would be going crazy right now.
Wait a minute. Let's stop that right there. First of all, Bernie Sanders didn't hold a job during that time, so there's no way he would have been anywhere near California. He was up in the mountains of Vermont, living in a cabin barefoot in a maple syrup farm. So
imagine if somebody said that Bernie Sanders was embedded with Che Guevara. Now, that I would believe.
Yeah.
If they said that he was fighting with the Sandinistas down in Nicaragua, that I would believe. Okay.
But into mass mind control with Sirhan? Nah, I don't think he was into that. But let's continue on, Mr. Gutfeld.
In the killing of Bobby Kennedy, we would be going crazy right now.
Yes.
We'd be going wall to wall.
This guy is going crazy.
No, are we about to achieve a historical first in electing the first conspiracy freak president? I mean, is this the pivot we've been talking about? He's not pivoting from presidential. He's pivoting to Alex Jones. He's pivoting to crazy. And why isn't it news?
It's crazy. Federal Reserve, audit the Fed. That's crazy.
It's unusual that somehow it's not news when Trump does it. It's kind of funny.
Wait, will you tell the people what you're talking about?
What about the National Enquirer?
Yeah, they don't even know what he's talking about. That's how not clued in these people are.
And I don't know why. Why isn't Greg wearing his bow tie? I mean, he looks like a guy that usually wears a bow tie.
Oh no, he should be, and some little. You know, I wear glasses, but he should have the little bitty man glasses. And
hey, look, these guys. Like I said earlier, when Donald Trump started talking about the 28 pages, declassified the 28 pages about the 9/11 attack.
Audit the Fed.
And right away, Wall Street Journal says, oh, he sounds like an Alex Jones caller. That was the very first line in their article. And so here's this guy right here. And you know what? When people look at the evidence, that's why the mainstream media hasn't been able to pull out any of their establishment candidates. That's why all the television ads that they spent $150 million that Jeb Bush put out there, there was just wasted money because nobody is paying attention to these people. They've lost the attention of the voters. They've lost their credibility. And people keep seeing this stuff come out, and it's like, yeah, there really is something there.
Well, and that ties hand in hand with your op-ed. People who work with their hands, like that's a bad thing. Like knowing how to have manual skills. Okay, I put up a partial fence in my backyard over the weekend. when I got back from talking to the social justice meatheads. And, you know, it's like, that's bad. Knowing how to use tools is bad. Something that could be done by a robot. You know, pretty soon, buddy, your job is going to be done by a robot. Facebook's already looking at algorithms, and so is Apple News, to have robots write news stories.
That's right.
They're going to try to make everybody obsolete.
And of course, part of what this guy was pissing on these people about was that they didn't have college degrees. And it's like, yeah, and they don't have that debt. You know?
And a lot of them are small business owners that work for a living. You know?
But, you know, that goes back to what George Will said a day or so earlier, that, you know, Republican convention should be sovereign. It shouldn't merely ratify decisions that were made elsewhere, like in elections, okay? And just because you've got a mere plurality of voters in this episodically recorded, protracted process, it's like, he's just saying the elections shouldn't matter at all. People like George Will know better than you, and people like Robert Cohen are superior to those people that they send off to die in the wars that they start. And you ought to just shut up and go fight for them.
There's Gutfield now live. He's probably just, you know, crying like a little girl on Fox News. But you know, let me tell you something, David. I've been to a lot of these rallies. You've been to some of these rallies. And I don't want to get crass, but when I was talking to the Trump supporters, they all looked like they had life in their eyes. They looked like they had their own opinions.
Yeah.
You know, not all of them like Trump for the same reason. Not all of them were like, I believe everything he says, but he's saying these things that I like. And they all had something different to say. And they all look like they all had jobs, for one thing. And you go to the Bernie side, not to get crass once again, and I've been accused of being a dirty hippie myself, so I don't feel bad saying this, but they smelled, you know, and they smelled like they hadn't bathed, that they weren't interested in it, that they were on this degenerate path of life, that they needed handouts. And here's the thing. They sit there and bitch and bitch and bitch about the government doing stuff, going to war, doing this and that, yet they think the only solution is more government to help them.
That's right.
Clear disconnect there in their way of thinking. There's nothing.
It doesn't take much to get a bunch of unemployed college students to show up to a protest.
Right.
It takes a lot to get people who have jobs, who have families, who have businesses to show up to a political rally. It is virtually impossible. And we've seen across this country tens of thousands of people showing up for Donald Trump. Why? Because the Republican Party has continually deceived them about what they're going to do. So we're going to do this. They elect them, and then they thumb their noses at them. And now the task before the Republican establishment, according to George Will, is to make sure that Donald Trump is going to lose all 50 states. He says if he gets the nomination, we got to make sure he loses all 50 states and hand it to Hillary Clinton. That's what they want to do, because Hillary will give them their globalist, multinational agenda.
And I think having the Republican Party, the GOP, work against Donald Trump is going to be the best thing for Donald Trump. And it's going to bring more people to his side and say, look, neither side wants this guy in. People are seeing through the BS. People they're not part of the GOP that are voting for Trump. There's plenty of people that are in the GOP that are voting for him, but there's plenty that aren't. He's brought a lot of people over to his side just because people are sick of politicians, because the politicians haven't done anything. They're only for their own special interests, just like Hillary Clinton. She's Goldman Sachs through and through.
Yeah.
Her son-in-law's a banker whose dad was a criminal, went to jail.
That's right.
So,
and it's going to get really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
When I saw this, when Donald Trump, as far ahead as he is, when he starts to talk about this connection, JFK, with a possible connection with Cruz's dad, when I saw that this morning, I said to my wife, this is going to be an interesting campaign, because he is going to pull out all of
Mena, Arkansas.
Yeah, all of her skeletons are going to be come out and dangled in front of the public. It is going to be a very, very
Travelgate. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Hillary is neck deep in skeletons.
Oh, it's
going
to be so interesting.
She can't pull them off herself. Nobody can. It'll take a million Huma Abedins to pull those skeletons out of her butt.
She's going to be wearing all of this stuff on a continual basis.
Hey, we're going to take your calls when we come back.
Yeah.
We'll give out that number, and we got Joe Biggs and Jakari Jackson in Studio B.
877-789-2539. 877-789-2539. We'll be right back.
Knockout is back. If you want a product that has 10 known ingredients that naturally get your body to relax, your brain to relax, so you get deep, restful sleep, Knockout's it. Infowarslife.com. L-theanine, hops flower extract, lemon balm extract, valerian root extract, chamomile flower extract, L-tryptophan extract, melatonin, and more. all organic, all the natural sources. It's the same price as leading brands of melatonin that are 3 milligrams apiece. It has 3 milligrams, the standard recommended dose for an adult, and it just synergistically puts everything in there. Infowarslife.com. That's Infowarslife.com, or call 888-253-3139.
You are watching the Infowars Nightly News, which airs 7 p.m. Central at InfoWarsNews.com. And your support is helping us defend liberty worldwide.
Welcome back to our live coverage of the Indiana primary, which has now turned out to be our live coverage of the end of the GOP primaries, because we've had Ted Cruz officially drop out after being shellacked in Indiana. So we're going to take a look at that. Before we go on, we were just talking before we went to the break, Rob, about how it's going to be interesting now that the general election is beginning.
Right.
He's going to bring out all of Hillary's skeletons. And she had a very interesting remark this last week when she came out and started talking about her off the reservation remark. And I want to get Joe Biggs and Jakari Jackson to come in on this too. Here's what she said. She said, I've had a lot of experience dealing with men who sometimes get off the reservation in the way they behave and how they speak. She says, I'm going to have trouble with Trump because I can handle men who get off the reservation in their behavior. And he came back and he said, well, you know, first of all, she's insulted the Indians and they were upset about that. I think she issued an apology to them, but she didn't issue an apology to men. And I think she wants to put everyone, not just men, I think she wants to put all of us on a reservation because, you know, the reservations are the original Agenda 21, the original socialist detainment camps.
She admitted that in a speech. She called it fun camps.
Yeah.
Adults can go and have fun.
Right.
That's where we don't have to worry about working. We don't have to worry about bills or taking care of our kids.
You're going to go to the reservation.
State's
not going to get out.
do it for us.
Well, you know,
it's a fun camp.
Back, we had, you talked and you interviewed and you shot the interviews with Russell Means.
Yeah.
American Indian Movement. And he wrote a book called Where White Men Fear to Tread. And he talked about how, he talked about how, he said, look, the American government has broken every treaty they've ever made with the Indians. And he goes, now they're breaking the treaty they made with you, white man, the Constitution. What are you going to do about it? Look at the reservation system. What they did to the Indians on the reservation system is now what they're doing in the cities to everyone. And it is a system of socialist control. And she came back and tried to walk these statements back and said, no, 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 I was thinking about Rudy Giuliani and Rick Lazio. And then she goes on to say, people have been dumping stuff on me for 25 years. I don't think she was talking about Rudy and Rick. I think people that have been dumping bad behavior on her was Bill. I think we got that right from the very beginning.
It's passive-aggressive Bill hating.
That's right.
And I guess no better person to bring on right now to talk about Hillary and the skeletons that are going to be in her closet when we see this general election kickoff is investigative journalist Wayne Madsen from the Wayne Madsen Report, also reporting for Infowars.com. Wayne, what do you make of the landslide victory today with Donald Trump?
Well, I'm really not too surprised. I really believe that the reason Trump decided to go for the jugular of Cruz with the father and Lee, association with Lee Harvey Oswald is that his internal polls showed him so far ahead. He figured, look, I can just drive a final nail in the coffin of this guy Cruz, and it looks like he did it.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think and that's the thing about Donald Trump. I think they underestimate him as a candidate. He is going to expose everything that Hillary has done. Don't you believe? He's going to go for everything.
Oh yeah, yeah. The guy. I said a long time ago. I said, the reason why. Remember Norman Lear created All in the Family. He was hoping white middle class, especially men, would laugh at the Archie Bunker character, and then thus they would look at their own failings. He said, I never thought they'd laugh along with them.
That's right.
So I think
and they laughed at his model of the guy who was supposed to be reasonable, I guess, Meathead, right? The son-in-law.
Yes,
he was supposed to be the one to educate us all, and we were all laughing at him and saying, what a dupe.
That's right. That's right. So what we have here is a case of people in Indiana affiliated themselves with Trump's comments, just as people in Pennsylvania and New York and South Carolina and Florida and every other state he went and did. And I think, we also, I don't know how it's going to turn out. It looks like Bernie Sanders may pull an upset too. People on both sides are frustrated with the political insiders in both parties, and we're just seeing a visceral reaction against them.
Absolutely. Wayne, have you heard Greg Gutfeld laughing about the JFK story and saying that Donald Trump pivoted towards Alex Jones? Did you hear that remark?
No, but I'm not. Greg Gutfeld is an incredibly non-funny person. I don't know what comedy clubs he appears at, but if I would never pay for a ticket to listen to the guy. I think
is he a legitimate comedian? I don't watch him. He really is supposed to be a comedian?
He's supposed to be a comedian, but when you're a comedian, you're supposed to be funny.
Yeah.
And he's not funny. He's just an arrogant. I have some words I could use. I won't. But, I mean, the guy, first of all, what's he doing on a political roundtable program? He doesn't have any credentials to talk about anything.
He's not a journalist. He doesn't do any investigation. He has a superficial knowledge of what's going on. And so these other guys, I mean, it was just about a month or so ago that they were laughing, National Review and the rest of these people were laughing about the 28 pages. They didn't even know what that was, okay? And so they were saying, hey, Donald Trump turned into an Alex Jones caller. And now we're hearing the same thing from this. And when he brought the subject up, the people on the panel were going, what? I don't know what that is, a JFK assassination?
Well, maybe.
Yeah, clueless.
Maybe they need to have Gilbert Gottfried join Greg Gutfeld on that show on Fox, and they can just bore people with their bad humor.
Yeah. Well, they ought to do a little bit of investigation if they're going to get on a show and talk about things. But I guess we don't have to have journalists anymore to have a talk show. They don't have to do any investigation. They set the bar pretty low, I guess.
Well, that's true. The White House Correspondents' Dinner used to be all journalists and their sources. And now half the people that show up are from Hollywood. I mean, they don't add anything to the occasion. I don't know why they're there, but that's the way the Washington press corps wants it, the White House press corps, and so they've got this sort of vapid annual event where they get some comic, like in this case Larry Wilmore, who really, I think, was despicable for using a term, whether you like Obama or don't like him. I don't think that word had any place at that White House Correspondents' Dinner.
Well, yeah, they used to say politics is show business for ugly people. I guess it's show business for people who aren't even remotely entertaining anymore, right?
Exactly. Well, they call the White House Correspondents' Dinner the nerd prom for a reason. now I just think it's not what it was. I know people who went to these events many, many years ago when they were strictly a journalist event. Either journalists were trying to curry favor with a source that they hope to get information from, or they did it to thank a source who had already given them some information. So it was that type of event, but no longer. It's now almost like it's the Oscar the Emmy or Oscar awards.
Now, Wayne, over 2 weeks ago, you put out the article about was the father of presidential hopeful Cruz, and you did it back in February too, involved in the JFK assassination, talking about that picture. And now just yesterday, you're talking about this voting fraud activist Gary Welsh, who's found dead, and this is just leading up to the Indiana primary. He was the one who was he your source for the Marco Rubio phone sex parties?
He was the source of the photographs of the guy who looked an awful lot like Rubio at the phone parties in South Beach, Miami, and that made its way into the debate when Chris Christie, the governor of New Jersey, kept referring to Marco Rubio as the boy in the bubble. I think it was quite clear what he was referring to, and I mean, if Trump picks Christie as his running mate. I think it's going to be quite a interesting. I mean, it's going to be a laugh a minute, isn't it?
It's already been a laugh a minute. I mean, this has been, I think, the best. It's funny how people get so serious about their candidate, especially the Bernie people and the Hillary people are so serious about their candidate. And if you say anything against them, it's F you, and we're going to, rough you up. And you don't see the Trump supporters really doing that unless they're attacked first. Unless people come into their house and start spitting on them, flipping them off. I mean, if somebody's going to flip you off, you know, I think you have some recourse at some point. I mean, I personally wouldn't do anything to anybody, and believe me, I've been getting flipped off left and right at these events. I just let them talk because to me, it's just more ammunition.
Yeah,
it's just building the fire even higher. Hey, keep talking. Oh, I'm what? Great. Yeah, here I am with a microphone. I'm so evil. I'm so despicable. Just keep talking. Keep telling me how bad I am.
Well, what's happened is we've had the globalist agenda move forward so quickly that people are waking up to what's happening. And they're waking up in Europe. We're seeing it with the Brexit campaign. We're seeing it with the rise of these parties that want independence. We're seeing it here in America as well. It's a pushback of people who say, hey, we want to control our own destiny. We want sovereign nations so that where we have some say-so. And at the same time, you've got these elitists in both the Democrat and Republican Party saying, oh, you want a sovereign nation? I don't think so. I think we want globalism. You want to have some say-so? I think we're going to veto your election because you're nothing but cannon fodder for our foreign wars. Okay, that's what they're telling us. And that's what people are getting upset about. And so I think to a large degree, I think there's a lot of people, as there will be with any presidential candidate, who will buy into a particular personality. I try not to get involved in particular personalities because I don't want to be disappointed. Look, everybody's got feet of clay. We're all human, okay? And so I'm not looking to Donald Trump to be the face of God to America. That, I think, was a huge mistake for Ted Cruz. I think he turned off a lot of Christians by saying, hey, if you follow God, you need to vote for my son, okay? That's what they're trying to do in Indiana, and condemning other people like that. No, it isn't about that. And we don't want a cult of personality. The person who was selling the cult of personality was Ted Cruz, and he was selling it with his public piety. People reject that. It's about the issues, and you're going to find that it isn't a binary situation. It isn't like I agree 100% with this guy and 0% with this guy. No, it's going to be a little bit a mature individual understands there's some issues you're going to agree with and disagree with on a particular candidate.
Right. Reverend Cruz is a dominionist. He believes in a Christian theocracy, fundamentalist Christian theocracy in America. He runs an operation in Dallas called something like El Mundo de Fair, you know, the World of Fire. I mean, I haven't heard of such a kooky church since Flip Wilson's The Church of What's Happening Now. You know, I mean, the guy's obviously a Cuban version of Elmer Gantry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I've even called him that. I've called him Elmer Gantry myself.
Exactly.
Perfect fit.
You know, he's nothing more than a con artist who's fleecing, you know, his Spanish-speaking congregants in Dallas who probably don't have much money to throw in his collection plate to begin with. I would hope people would, you know, well, it turns out people did see through this nonsense. But Gary Welsh, who ran Advance Indiana out of Indianapolis, an attorney, a Republican party, but certainly not a Cruz guy or a Rubio guy. I believe he supported Trump. They're saying he shot and killed himself over the weekend. They found a gun next to his body. The police said, oh, well, we're basing our suicide, even without the autopsy, and we know how cops are with autopsies, or the lack thereof, recently with Scalia. The cop said, well, he posted something. He said, I may not be around on Tuesday to see Trump win, but, and they say, well, that means he obviously intended to kill himself. Well, that's like Martin Luther King said in his last speech, I may not get there with you, but, you know, I may not get to the promised land, but he obviously knew that his life was being threatened.
That's right.
They're going to say something like he hung his legs over the stairwell, shot himself behind the back of the head, and then fell to his death.
Yeah.
After that, it's going to be some ridiculous circumstances like with other people, like Terrence Yakey.
I don't believe Gary Welsh shot himself. I think he probably was having his life threatened, and now, like with all these cases, like the D.C. Madam, Danny Casolaro, Gary Webb, who I have been in contact with prior to his supposedly shooting himself twice in the head. The police find, and reporters find friends that say, oh, he was despondent. He had financial problems. The New York Daily News said, well, he was gay. What in the world does that have to do with it?
Yeah, exactly. You can build a case, and you don't typically do investigations like that trying to support your presupposition, right? You come in and you offer a whole bunch of things, and then you rule them out. Instead, we see that when it's a convenient situation like it is with Scalia, that, oh, well, don't worry about it. We'll just gloss over this. And as Alex pointed out, they certainly didn't do that with Prince.
They're going to find out who sold him the Percocet.
That's right.
They're looking for. Yeah. Hey, before we go any further, I want to give out the 1-800 number, and we're going to load up those phone lines. And we're not going to go to anybody just yet, but just so we can get some people on the line right now. 877-789-2539. 877-789-2539. And I think that spells out Alex.
Ah, there you go.
There it is. So start calling in, and we're going to go to your calls there in a second. We got Jakari Jackson and Joe Biggs over in Studio B. Guys, do you have any questions for Wayne Madsen?
No, but I do have an interesting tweet that's going out right now. It's kind of circulating the Twitterverse. It says, breaking news, John Kasich holds out hope for an assassination.
Repeat that?
No, this guy is joking. It says, breaking news, John Kasich holds out hope for an assassination. So yeah. Joking about Kasich, how he's not going to give up regardless of the fact.
And I think they've officially called it for Sanders. I believe that's what they're saying here on CNN. Or
Trump is now actually
so that means Hillary gets the delegates. So that's what they're calling it. That means Hillary gets Sanders wins, Hillary gets the delegates, and
Trump is now coming out right now to speak at about his victory and I'm sure talk about Ted Cruz as well.
I don't think on the Democrat side, I may be wrong, but I don't think they get any extra delegates for winning the state. I think everything is done proportionately. They award the delegates statewide proportionately, and they award them per congressional delegation proportionately as well. So there's not a winner-take-all at any level.
Well, hey, guys, can y'all pop in just a little bit of that audio of the Donald Trump victory speech? See if he mentions Ted Cruz.
So important. So important.
This is from Trump HQ in New York City.
Indiana have been incredible. I started, as you know, not very long ago, about 6 weeks ago, and I was told I had a 20-point deficit. And I went there and I worked very hard and I campaigned and I made lots of speeches and met lots of incredible people.
57%
Incredible people.
57-point jump.
You don't get better. And the crowds got bigger and bigger, and toward the end it was like I didn't want to leave. I almost said, maybe I'll just never leave. And it resonated somehow. And we had a tremendous victory tonight. It was a tremendous victory. And I have to thank Bobby Knight. Boy, Bobby Knight was incredible.
Did you know who Bobby Knight was? That was the coach of the Indiana Hoosiers.
I do know that much. I do know that much. I don't follow sports like. You know, Huckabee said, hey, I was governor.
Bobby Knight was also known for telling it like it is, too.
That's right.
You know, and people didn't really want to go play for him because he was such a hard coach and he demanded so much out of his players. He did not, and he won with less talented players than other teams did because he was able to take them, get them to focus as a team. So that's pretty interesting. I've read a couple books on Bobby Knight.
Huckabee said that
he was actually the coach at my college. I went to Texas Tech University.
Oh yeah, he did move there.
He was behaving himself really well the whole time he was there, though. It was right after the Indiana incident.
He threw chairs and.
Well, Huckabee said about the endorsement of Indiana's Governor Pence, and really it was kind of a non-endorsement. Scarborough was talking about that. Said, hey, if somebody gave me an endorsement like that, I would say take your blanking endorsement back. But Huckabee said, if when I was governor of Arkansas, if somebody had come to me and they had a choice of my endorsement or the choice of the coach of the Razorbacks, they'd be crazy to take my endorsement over the coach. and that truly is what happened, I think. And I think it made a big difference.
Hey, guys, we'll come back to him if he starts talking about Ted Cruz. I think that might be really the only interesting thing. And I guess from here on out, he's probably going to be campaigning in, I think there's one more. I don't know what the primary schedule is. I know June 7th is California, but I think there's a couple more in between there.
I don't think Trump is really going to have
West Virginia might be one.
Any kind farewell kisses for Ted Cruz, because Ted Cruz really went off the rails today about Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Pretty much called him everything he could think of.
Called him a philanderer today.
Yeah. Called him pretty much everything and attacked him at every personal level he could think of. So I don't think that Donald Trump is really going to have much use for him.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't have. He needs to stay in the Senate where he is and pretend like he's against the Fed.
He needs a Senate challenge when he comes up for his first reelection. Maybe we could get somebody who's really an American from Texas. You know, a natural born citizen.
Maybe.
What?
David Simpson.
Oh yeah, David Simpson.
He'd be great.
Excellent. He'd be excellent. Except we need him here in Texas. You know, that's the thing. We don't need to send all of our best people to Washington. You know, we need good people like David Simpson here in the Texas legislature.
Yeah, he had. Was he the one that came up with the bill just saying, "Hey, God made this plant marijuana, and we should let people use it for medicine." And
he is a straight up, dyed in the wool Texan, and he was the one who introduced twice the bill to stop the TSA sexually molesting our children twice. And that got shut down at the
national news story.
Yeah, it got shut down because the TSA said, we're going to turn Texas into a no-fly zone. And it came out in the court documents when John Corbett was suing the TSA that at the very same time, the TSA said in their internal documents, there is no threat to airports or airplanes. At the same time, they were saying, we're going to shut you down if you don't have that. So they took that down. But he came up a second time, and then he's a real conservative libertarian. He came up with that bill and said, we're just going to remove marijuana completely out of all the criminal code of Texas. And he at least got through the exemption for medical marijuana for people who have epileptic seizures due to their vaccine reaction.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the amazing thing. They mandate vaccines, and yet they wanted to try to keep out medical marijuana. We still have medical marijuana as a Class 1 drug here in Texas, which is to say that it has no medical usage, except they have a medical exemption for it.
Hey, guys, I got some breaking news from the Clinton compound.
What's going on there?
Hillary says if she becomes president, she will bring Bill out of retirement and put him to work in the White House.
What does that mean? Is that a euphemism for something? I don't know.
She's going to make him the yard boy.
Servicing the female aides? Is that what he'll be doing?
She's going to put him back on the reservation.
Hey, we still have Wayne Madsen, don't we? Is Wayne still there? Wayne, what can we look for? What can we look for? Like, I guess the first couple skeletons that are going to pop out of Hillary's closet when we start.
Skeletons to drop.
The first skeletons to drop. How many? I mean, I know we're going to get a ton of them, but what are the first couple that are going to be when she starts going against Donald Trump?
Well, since you know, we saw with Cruz, you know, this old story with Raphael and Oswald, I would imagine we're going to hear about Vince Foster again. He was the deputy White House counsel, of course, whose body was discovered at Fort Marcy Park in suburban Virginia, outside of Washington.
And supposedly some files that were supposedly in Vince Foster's office ended up in the Clinton residence after that, right?
Right. They called that a suicide, or some feeling that it might not have been, but apparently he had a very close relationship with Hillary Clinton. I really think, I'm not saying I would do it, but I think we're going to hear the name Vince Foster once again after these many, many years because of his relationship with Hillary Clinton.
No, there wasn't much blood found at the crime scene. This is stuff I'm just remembering.
Gun in the wrong hand, wasn't it, Wayne?
I was at the crime scene when they first let people in there, and the thing that struck me was how there was like this rectangular area that had been swept clean of everything, cigarette butts. You know, as Fort Marcy Park was well known as a place for guys to sell drugs at the time, and also gay liaisons. So you'd find all kinds of, you'd find hypodermic needles, cigarette butts, and other unsavory things. But this area where they found Vince Foster's body had been swept clean of every possible clue you could imagine. Like a vacuum cleaner came in there. And it was quite noticeable, actually. And then they closed the park for almost a year because they said they were refurbishing it. So nobody could go in there. Actually, the reason they did it, they didn't want the park used as a backdrop for television crews because, you know, there was still a great deal of media interest in the Vince Foster case.
Well, of course, when they come back and if they start to, I think he'll kind of take his clue as to what she chooses to talk about in some cases. If she starts to question some of his business dealings, I would expect him to bring up Whitewater, for example. Talk about what a genius she was with her investments.
Her cattle futures.
Bernie's got Indiana.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think some of that will, you know, there'll be a back and forth. Whenever she attacks him, he'll hit her back pretty hard with some of her history.
Yeah, well, we got the the private email server. We got Libya, Benghazi. And I think, I think also her personal life, Huma Abedin, the wife of Anthony Weiner, a.k.a. Carlos Danger. That relationship is going to come out, and other relationships that Hillary Clinton has had.
Well, you know, you brought up the email stuff. I think that's really going to be front and center because he's already talked about how he would prosecute her. And that's something that's still percolating through the FBI. So I think he's really going to hit her on that because that is the most recent issue, big scandal, and that touches on foreign policy. It touches on her tenure there as Secretary of State. And we just had Cy Hirsch this weekend say that he believed that Hillary Clinton was in the rat line authorizing the transfer of sarin gas, perhaps from the arms bazaar there in Benghazi to Syria to try to orchestrate a false flag to get us involved in that war. So that's right on the front burner right now. I think he's really going to go there and talk on that because that hits on a number of issues. You know, her girlfriend, Huma, has absolute direct links to the Muslim Brotherhood, which is
her parents, through her parents.
So possibly Hillary may want a focus to be on Vince Foster because he's probably the last male that she has reportedly had in any sort of relationship with. Yeah,
that turned her off men, I guess.
I leave Bill Clinton out of that list as well.
Yeah.
So should we start calling her the Black Widow then? I guess she consumes her mates, but
and Bill was too radioactive.
Yeah.
Wayne, anything else to add on the death of this investigator, Mr. Welsh?
Well, I certainly it came as a shock to me because I had been in contact with him, just as it was a shock when Gary Webb supposedly committed suicide. I had been working with him we were investigating in the same company, a company called Affiliated Computer Systems, which actually had the contract to approve the student visas for Muhammad Atta and the other alleged hijackers. And the focus, ironically enough, the focus was on Indianapolis, where Gary Welsh died, because Gary Webb and I were looking at a guy named Stephen Goldsmith, the vice president of ACS, who was former mayor of Indianapolis.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. Well, just for the record, Wayne, I'm feeling fine. I'm not thinking about suicide. Neither is Rob Dew, and neither are you, right, Wayne? You're feeling fine.
No, I don't have any ballooning mortgages. I'm in, I don't have any health issues other than I need to lose some weight. I don't, let's see, what else? I can't think of it. I'm not suffering clinical depression. And people say, aren't you worried about I said, look, I have one simple rule I live by. If anyone takes a shot at me, please don't miss, because I won't.
That's great.
Very good. Wayne Madsen from the Wayne Madsen Report. I think you're going to be on the Alex Jones Show later this week to talk about this and other things, just basically how you're predicting and basically starting the news cycle, because you were talking about this stuff months ago, especially with the JFK connections with Rafael Cruz. So thank you for joining us. And we're going to go to some calls now. We have Taylor in Colorado who wants to ask you about Webster Tarpley. I like Webster, by the way, but I just think he's misguided in a few things. But anyway, go ahead, Taylor. What's your question?
Hey, what's up, guys? Good show tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not like a huge Webster Tarpley fan or anything. I've just seen him in, what was it, the Obama deception, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But,
and Fall of the Republic.
Yeah, seems like a smart guy. But I saw David's run-in with him and wanted you guys to elaborate on that a little bit more.
Well, it all started when I went over and I saw his sign, which Rob saw. That they've reproduced this.
Nazi.
Yeah, Trump equals Nazi, and they've got Trump out like that. And so I went over and asked him. I said, "Do you really think that that's winning you any converts to to attacking Trump when you do that?" Yeah, you do that at the the AIPAC convention, 15,000 Jews that are there to support Israel, and he puts Trump up as a Nazi. I said, "Do you think that's really helping anything?" And they really got after me, assuming that, like I said before, that I support Trump on every single issue. And I pointed out to them, look, on libertarian issues, we don't have a candidate in the Republican or Democrat Party right now. Even I think some of the past libertarian candidates, like Gary Johnson, I think were very weak on a lot of the libertarian issues. I think he was very weak in the 4 years ago on civil liberties. I think he could have come out much stronger on that. So, we look at these things, and I said, it's about the globalism. And he says, well, I want to have a tax on trade and tariff and everything. And I said, he has proposed a tariff that's even higher than what you're talking about. So, it was a back and forth that way. The way I read Webster Tarpley is he's a big fan of FDR. I'm not a big fan of FDR. So we have a fundamental disagreement on that issue. I believe that FDR did a lot of command and control and centralization of the economy and politics that I believe is unwarranted. I believe it's anti-libertarian. I don't support that. I think that the Glass-Steagall Act that he champions, I agree with that. I think that we should, if we're going to allow banks to have some kind of a monopoly, there ought to be some strings attached to that. But I don't think they ought to have monopolies. I don't think we ought to be federally insuring the banks. And so I think that when they remove those restrictions, and if I'm not mistaken, I think that was Bill Clinton that took out Glass-Steagall. It wasn't even the Republicans. So, yeah, I think that they're allowing them to speculate and gamble with other people's money and then bail them out. And that's the other part of the problem. I mean, even if you allow them to speculate, if they fail, allow them to fail. Okay.
Exactly.
This is worse than the FDIC when we say they're going to be able to do anything that they want to. And no matter how much they lose, we're going to bail them out because they're too big to fail. I mean, we've all had that discussion. We're all openly contemptuous of that. And I think that's a big part of the frustration that founded the Tea Party and has founded this movement with Trump. It's a pushback against crony capitalism, against the multinational corporations that are ripping us off.
And I had a run-in with a couple of Webster Tarpley fans in San Francisco. And they, wanted to talk to me and give me a history lesson and this and that. And I was talking with them. I let them talk. One of them, the guys, even did a speech in front of the crowd, and I'm going to be cutting those pieces together because they are really, they're pushing for this New Deal for the people. But when you go back and look at the New Deal, people have studied that, and they're saying the policies that Roosevelt put into place caused the Great Depression to last 7 years longer. It caused massive unemployment because they were fixing wages that weren't economically feasible at the time. They also went through and destroyed a lot of food. So they were slaughtering hogs, they were killing chickens to artificially raise the price of food stuff so they could stabilize the farming industry. And that's kind of what you have now. Like, milk should not be $3 a gallon. It should be what I pay for raw milk, about $9 a gallon, between $7 and $9. That's the real price of milk. But because you have federal subsidies subsidizing this stuff, you don't see that real price exist.
And you had the issue where you had a farmer who said, I don't want to participate in the subsidies. I want to just grow stuff and sell it here locally. And they said, you can't do that.
No, you got to be part of the collective.
They took it to the Supreme Court and they said, even though you're growing all this stuff within your state, selling it to people within your state, you're still affecting the global economy with your little corn or whatever it was that he was selling. And they got away with that because FDR packed the Supreme Court. And that's one of the problems that I had with Ted Cruz, in the sense that he kept putting forward this notion that if we're going to protect the Constitution, we have to pack the Supreme Court. If we rely and we allow the Supreme Court to be the final arbiter of the Constitution, we've lost. We have to recapture that at the state and local level. And if we don't do that, if we allow the Supreme Court to have the final say-so on everything, then we really have lost. And it doesn't really matter who is president. We're not going to be able to overcome these 9 political appointees.
All right. Thanks for calling, Taylor. Now we got Daniel in New York, wants to talk about geoengineering, weather modification, and the election. Go ahead, Daniel.
Hey, guys. How's it going? I love Infowars, love the crew. Thank you for covering geoengineering. No other really network I can even see covers that. That's major. Now I want to talk about what happened in Colorado, like about the judge ordering the mother's child to be removed because of her private beliefs.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I've got the story right here from Infowars.com from Paul Joseph Watson today. Judge orders mother's child to be snatched because she believes in chemtrails. And, I mean, that is ridiculous. What about all the people who believe in UFOs and alien abductions and the Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot? And I'm not saying chemtrails and geoengineering belong in that. But you can't do that to people. You're snatching because of geoengineering is admitted. It's admitted. But go ahead. Go ahead, Daniel.
That's what I'm saying. It's complete insanity. Like, lock me up right now. The UN wouldn't ban it if it wasn't existing. It's complete insanity.
We had the father of weather weapons on video talking about what they used to do. It's essentially chemtrailing clouds to make giant monsoons to flood out the North Vietnamese.
Well, what it amounts to is it amounts to the suppression of free thought and free speech. There are certain things that you're not going to be allowed to say.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that harms anybody that's hateful about that. I mean, this is not anything that's racist speech or hate speech in any respect. This is not anything that's not violent or going to incite people to violence. This is simply analysis and discussion. And if you don't agree with it, you're not allowed to take people's children away. What we need to be doing is we need to be taking that judge out of that court. That's what the people in that area ought to do, whether they agree with chemtrails or not, whether they agree with the science of it or the investigation of it. We need to remove judges like this. And that's what I'm saying when we have to recapture our activism at the local level and not depend on a president to solve everything. I don't think the president can do a lot of the things that need to be done. They don't have the power and shouldn't have the power. And we shouldn't elect a libertarian FDR if such a thing could exist. I mean, that's a contradiction in terms, but still, we need to do things at the local level. And one of the things we need to do is when you've got a judge that's this outrageous, you need to mount a recall operation. We've had state legislators recalled in Colorado for gun control legislation, wasn't it, in Colorado? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the sort of thing we need to start doing at the local level, and it's hard to do that because the national media, like we are, we can't focus. We both pull up stories like this, but we can't focus to the degree that we need to focus on a particular state or a local problem.
We put stories out like this so people in this area can get activated.
That's right.
Holy crap, I better do something. And they get on the phone, they get on their Facebook, and they say, we got to go defend this lady.
That's right.
We have to go to the judge and say, you're wrong. To follow this judge around.
We can tell you that that's happening. We can tell you that that's happening, but then you guys have to act on it at that local level. You need to recall that judge at that local level. So we can shine the spotlight on it, but you know that's really all that can be done at the national level is to focus on these individual cases of.
Seriously, judge wants cloudy skies. I mean, you could maybe that could be your petition.
Yeah,
this judge doesn't. Thinks that clouds coming out of jet planes persisting and spreading out over a large area is normal. And here's what it says. She was triggered after Van Dab said that the inquiry was triggered after she raised the subject of chemtrails during a visit to her daughter's school and was immediately told to leave the premises. Like saying the word chemtrails is suddenly like using the N-word or something.
Yeah.
You know, just totally ridiculous. I guess New York. But are there any laws or any judges like that in your area like this, Daniel?
I know the judges are actually really crooked. I live in Westchester,